The Montreal Canadiens have lost Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Conference Final. The Carolina Hurricanes will be facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights. I was contemplating over whether I would rather Jesperi Kotkaniemi or Mitch Marner to win the Stanley Cup. But the Hurricanes have Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, and Taylor Hall, so that makes my decision very clear. Back to the Montreal Canadiens. I'm both extremely happy for them, but very disappointed in them. In my original bracket, I had them losing Game 7 in round 1 against Tampa Bay. I wanted the Montreal Canadiens to at least win 2 games in their playoff run so they could improve from last year. They won 9 games. So good on them. The Tampa and Montreal series, in my opinion, was the best series this playoff season out of any series. I watched pretty much all of the Eastern Conference games and a lot of the Western Conference games, and none of them had as much fight and effort from both teams as Tampa and Montreal. There were so many fights, and the Habs shot a lot more than they did recently. Not counting Game 7, they shot between 18 and 30 shots. Even in the games where they shot a lot less, a lot of those shots made it into the net. People talk about our first 2 lines underperforming, but Juraj Slavkovsky was the main reason that the Habs won Game 1. He's the one with the hat trick, and then he didn't really do much after that. Do I think he lived up to his expectations? Yes. With the captain, Nick Suzuki, I wish he would shoot more. The biggest compliment I can give him is that, as always, he's sort of the silent hero of the Habs. Until Game 5, the other day, he had the most points and most assists for the Habs in the postseason. He's always like that, never having the big moments, but somehow being statistically the best player on the team. My biggest complaint about Suzuki, however, is that I don't like his post-game interviews, especially the one during the conference final. I don't like the "we did the best we could" speeches, because you didn't. I've seen how y'all play in the first 2 series. I know that's a lie, and I know you know that that's a lie. I know that he can dunk on his teammates, but Jakob Dobish and Lane Hudson gave less delusional interviews. I'll get more into Jakob Dobish later, but in his interview, he blames himself when they lose. He's always saying that he can be better and that it's his fault they lost. I don't agree with that at all. I think that he's the reason they don't lose worse. Lane Hudson also had a similar "I need to play better" speech, and that one I kind of agree with more, but not really. Despite being the best skater on his team, he has made some big mistakes after spending too much time on the ice. To put it simply, he gassed out. It's the same reason that Mike Matheson does his Mike Matheson moves. I may be in the minority when I say that I think that Mike Matheson is a good defenseman. He just should not have as much ice time as he does, because he's good for at least half of his ice time and then he passes the puck to the other team. This brings me to my next point. The Habs need better defensemen. I'm not talking about Jaden Struble or Arbor Jacka, because for what they're paid for and that they're rotating 6th defensemen, I have no expectations for them. Noah Dobson has fairly disappointed me with his underperformance, but he's coming off an injury, so it's excusable. Caden Gooley has gone from being the Habs' best defensive defenseman in the regular season to another Mike Matheson in the playoffs. Alex Carrier is the only one besides Hudson who's consistently good in the playoffs. He's always the one diving to save the puck and makes fewer major mistakes than the majority of his fellow defensemen. You cannot have your defensive core carried by Lane Hudson. You need more than 2 consistently decent defensemen. Let's move on to the forwards now. Zach Bodzik, Kirby Dack, and Joe Veleno. For a 4th line, they score a lot for the team, but they could always be better. Oliver Kapanen. It must be sad to go from a 2nd line center to the press box, but the reality is he isn't ready for the playoffs. Brendan Gallagher. He is the heart of the team. I wish that Martin St. Louis put him in for the final game of the postseason, because I know that even though he's not the best, he would have put in the most effort. Alex Tessier. He's doing well for what they pay him. He's pretty much a less physical Bodzik, which is both good and bad, but overall I think the Habs are the right team for him. Philip Danault. The Habs have been a better team since he came back. He is the best at faceoff, and he's one of their best defensive forwards. I don't like the interview he gave after Game 4 of the conference final, but I'll get into that later. Josh Anderson. I'm kind of disappointed because after the Tampa series, he wasn't all that physical, which is what he's known for in the playoffs. Jake Evans. I think that he's a better fit for the second center than Oliver Kapanen. He complemented Alex Newhook and Ivan Demidov much better. Do I think he'll be the permanent second center? No. He's just there until they can get a better one. Alex Newhook. He is what Cole Caulfield is with Saturday Night Bell Center games, but with Game 7 instead. If the Carolina series ended in Game 7 instead, I'm sure he would have rescued them yet again. Ivan Demidov. Even though he had a slower start, when he finally scored his first playoff goal, he became the Demidov that we know and love. Cole Caulfield. The biggest disappointment this postseason. You could point out the stats on how he's only behind Alex Newhook in goals scored, but Cole Caulfield isn't just any goal scorer. He was the runner-up for the Rocket Richard. Maybe the Rocket Richard is a curse. Nathan McKinnon didn't do much for Colorado in the conference final. Austin Matthews doesn't do much for Toronto in the playoffs either. And I believe that Cole Caulfield is slowly turning into the Habs Austin Matthews in the worst way. Speaking of turning into someone in the worst way, Jakub Dobeš, the new Carey Price. This may be a hot take, but I think that Jakub Dobeš is the best goalie in this postseason by a long shot. Every other goalie had either an elite offensive core, an elite defensive core, or both. Jakub Dobeš had neither, but has consistently saved about 30 shots and still somehow loses. If he had a better team, he would sweep his way into the Stanley Cup Finals. People are saying that Carey Price deserves the team that Jakub Dobeš has, but in reality, at least in the playoffs, it's pretty much the same team. On January 27th, on his 25th birthday, he saved 40 shots. His teammates had 18 shots and 0 goals. After that game, I believe that Jakub Dobeš was allowed to beat up every one of his teammates. Maybe Lane Hudson gets a slap because he put in a lot of effort. There were some stupid Hab fans that were blaming Dobeš and saying, Carey Price would never let in those goals. Yes, he would have. In his prime, he did. And there were a lot of Hab fans that blamed him and that were dogging on him. It happens all the time. And what was really annoying about Game 4 was that Philip Danault gave a interview. He was asked about Jakub Dobeš losing on his birthday, and he said, oh, well, I've lost plenty of games on my birthday. It's not the same thing. He saved a ridiculous amount of shots, and his teammates did nothing for him. It was in the conference final on his birthday. That really annoyed me. No accountability. It was so annoying. Overall, what do I think of the Habs postseason? They exceeded my expectation. As I said, in my first bracket, they lose to Tampa in Game 7. In my second bracket, I had them winning the Stanley Cup, which I know is delusional, but I didn't think they were going to play like this against Carolina. What I think happened to them is that they simply gassed out. They played 2 back-to-back Game 7s, the last of which ended in overtime. They won the first game in the conference final, which woke up the Carolina Hurricanes, and they thought, we should demolish them. It was a lot closer than it should have been, considering that the Habs won the first game. Game 2 and 3 went to overtime before getting run over in 4 and 5. Do I think they're a bad team? No. I still love this team so much. They just need some work. They're the youngest team ever to make the playoffs. Most of them have never played this much hockey in their life. So how do they improve? Well, they could shoot the puck. Shoot it. I think that's going to be it for today. To the Montreal Canadiens, thank you for a great season. In the next season, I'm sure you'll play just as good, if not better. I'm sure you'll be better in your next playoff run. To everyone else, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!